Hello and welcome to day 9 of 10. 2 days left until I turn 10 years sober. Crazy! Today's episode, I think, is probably going to be short and sweet, but I've said that before and then talked forever, so I never aim to predict, but today I want to talk about one of my favorite topics when it comes to addiction and recovery, and that is connection over everything. So, I need to give credit where credit is due. What I'm about to say, is largely based off of my favorite TED Talk in the history of time. I can never seem to remember the guy who actually gave the TED Talk. Let me think about this for a second. I want to say his name is Johan something. He has a British accent. He's amazing. I will link the TED Talk in the description of this video on YouTube and also in the show notes on Spotify. But the TED Talk is called Everything You Think You Know About Addiction Is Wrong. It's only about a 15-minute TED Talk, but there's a lot of good information in there. And, I already did a whole episode on the root cause of addiction and trauma and Gabor Mate's work and all of that kind of stuff. I believe that was on day 5. You can go back and check it out. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. He definitely covers that as well. But his main premise in the whole TED Talk is that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. And that always gives me chills and makes me kind of emotional because I definitely relate to that, like to the core of my being. That is definitely my experience with alcoholism, addiction, and also recovery. And what always strikes me most about that is he talks about, our human drive to bond and connect. That is one of our most basic developmental needs, is the need for attachment. And if we are unable to bond and connect in healthy ways with the other humans in our environment, we will find something to bond and connect with, to satisfy that need and to soothe ourselves. And in the case of, addicts and alcoholics, what they choose to bond with is drugs and alcohol. And something else that always strikes me when I contemplate this topic is my first sponsor used to tell me this a lot. She used to say, Elsa, addicts are the only people who cure loneliness with isolation. And it's true. I have been in circles with lots and lots and lots of people in recovery over the last 10 years. And that deep, void, that soul level loneliness is a very common thread amongst alcoholics. Some people are legit lone wolves and, sit in their room and never leave. And some people, on the outside, it would appear that they have a lot of friends and connections and people who love them and people they're always hanging out with. But in their experience of it, they still felt isolated. They still felt separate. They felt like they didn't really have people to connect with and reach out to who understood them. And that leads us to drink and use more, that intense feeling of loneliness and isolation. And something that I really like in this TED Talk is he talks a lot about how, in America and in a lot of places in the West, we kind of believe in this intervention model of helping people get sober. It's like you gather all of the people that the addict loves most in the world in a room, and it starts lovingly, but essentially the premise is if you do not change your behavior, if you do not stop drinking, if you do not XYZ, I'm going to disconnect from you. And I'm going to take the thing that you want more than anything in this world, which is love and connection. And I'm going to make it conditional on you behaving the way that I want you to behave. And that's just not it. It's not. And this is not to say that we have to be permissive. This is not to say that we should, keep giving our drug addict sibling money to support their habit. There is a very fine line between enabling and maintaining connection. And it's a tough line to walk. There are many people that I love dearly in my life who are addicts, and it's not easy to watch someone destroy themselves. But as hard as it is, we, as the person who loves the addict, need to do the self-work necessary to have boundaries and still be able to maintain the connection. Now, I'm mainly referring to family members here. At the end of the day, you don't need to stick around and be abused by someone. I'm not suggesting that in very extreme cases, there isn't a time and a place where it's like, okay, I can't do this anymore. But for the most part, our model of how to deal with addicts and alcoholics is intervention. It's this conditional, I'm going to withdraw connection from you if you don't behave the way I want you to. And so instead, at the end of the TED Talk, he says something, and I've listened to this TED Talk literally hundreds of times, and it makes me cry every time. He's like, what if instead of singing war songs to addicts, we sung love songs to them? Because honestly, from working in the rehab industry, from, all my interactions with my sober friends, alcoholics are some of the most sensitive, creative, thoughtful, beautiful humans that I have ever had the pleasure of knowing. And it is because of that sensitivity and because of being traumatized that we drink and use and behave in ways that hurt other people. But that's not the core of who anybody is. And so at the end, he says, and so what I aim to do with the addicts in my life is to say, I love you, whether you're drinking or you're not. I love you, whether you're using or you're not. And if ever you need me, I will come and I will sit with you, because I don't want you to be alone. That's it, people. That's it. Connection over everything. Compassion over everything. And in countries where they have taken a more compassionate route with alcoholics and addicts, there have been tremendous results in recovery, healing, and all the metrics. Connection and compassion is the way. I'll see you tomorrow.